Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Great Games. On today's episode, it's part 2 of the ranking Nintendo 64 video. This is going to be all the C's in the Nintendo 64 US library. I did forget a B, so the B is going to be first because I forget stuff sometimes, And so there you go. I hope you guys like it. If you guys disagree with anything in the video, definitely let me know in the comments below. Like the video and don't forget to subscribe, please. And here we go.
Brunswick Circuit Bowling is a bowling game for the Nintendo 64, and there's real-life bowlers in here, which is neat. I mean, look, you can play as any of these hunks over here. Other than that, it's no-frills bowling with very mediocre graphics and really weird controls. I feel like if it's a bowling game, it shouldn't take itself too seriously, and it kind of suffers because of it, and I'll give it a D. California Speed is an arcade racing game. It's incredibly mediocre, but I did enjoy seeing some sites that I've been to when I lived in California, like the Monterey Bay Aquarium, which I absolutely love. And it was incredibly surprising, and I kind of jumped up out of my seat when I did see it, even though the accuracy of the aquarium is god-awful. Looks nothing like it does in real life. The music is actually pretty nice and relaxing, but it does seem out of place in this game. But for me, it's going to be a C. Very average, but still a little bit of fun. Carmageddon 64 is a racing game where you get extra points for running over zombies which are taking over the tracks and are filling the streets. Sounds like an incredibly good time, right? Wrong. So wrong. This game is an embarrassment to video games in general. The music and sound effects are ear-piercingly bad, and the frame rate stutters for no reason when there's nothing going on in the game. I've never been more offended playing a video game, because I remember loving the original PC release a long time ago. I do believe this is the second worst Nintendo 64 game, and the only thing this game has going for it is that the price of the game is almost $50, which will deter some people from suffering its appalling existence. It's an obvious F. Castlevania for the Nintendo 64, or as it's sometimes called Castlevania 64, is the first Castlevania game to use 3D graphics. This game is also incredibly disappointing for Nintendo 64 owners because the PlayStation got one of the best games of all time 2 years prior in Symphony of the Night, and we get this sloppy, god-awful mess. The camera is a struggle and the controls are very poor. The music is phenomenal, and the graphics and character designs are very well done, but this unfortunately doesn't make the gameplay much better. In the short time I spent with it, I'll give it a D, and if I'm wrong and I should give it another chance, please let me know. Castlevania Legacy of Darkness was a prequel and an expanded remake of the first game. It was also released in the same year as the previous game, which is kinda crazy to think about. The graphics are a tad sharper and better, but the same issues plague this Castlevania release. To me, it's also a D. Chameleon Twist is a 3D platformer on a system filled with 3D platformers. This one stands out fairly well, though. Your main gameplay function is to use your tongue to defeat enemies by eating them and spitting them back out at other enemies. You can also use it to attach onto things to help your character traverse areas that you cannot reach using a standard jump. Your tongue is controlled by the analog stick, and this can be a little touchy at times. The graphics are colorful, the music is upbeat and fits the game nicely, but the camera is pretty bad, and unfortunately that brings it down to a C. Chameleon Twist 2 is the second and last game in the series. This game is very similar to the first one with not much changing. There's the same gameplay styles, same attacks, same almost everything. I will say I did like the look of this game better, the graphics were a lot brighter and colorful, and the camera is a little better but still frustrating at times. This one doesn't do a lot to make it better than the first game, so it's still a C for me. Charlie Blast's Territory is a puzzle game where your job is to blow up all the bombs on a series of islands. Sometimes there's obstacles in a way to blow up the bombs. If you get caught in the blast, you will die and have to restart. As you can tell, I don't have a lot to say about this game, and this game is very forgettable, so for me, it's a D. This is Chopper Attack. This game surprised me with how much fun I had with it. It's a third-person shooter where you fly a chopper, I know, shocking, right? And you blow stuff up. The things you blow up will vary by each mission, but along the way you will blow up other enemy aircraft, radars, and you'll do other missions like rescuing prisoners of war and escorting other aircraft. The radar here is super useful because unfortunately most, if not all, the colors in this game are either green or brown, so everything blends together fairly well, and it's maybe too well because it makes things a lot harder to see. The controls are surprisingly responsive and intuitive, and it's a shockingly well-designed experience. Overall, it's pretty fun, and I'll give it a B. Clayfighter 63 1/3 is a 2D fighter that uses stop motion and claymation to create a pleasant visual experience. Its premise is that it's essentially a parody of other fighting games, and that in itself is a very unique idea. The characters are unique, and you can even play as Earthworm Jim and Boogerman, amongst other very unique characters. Unfortunately, that's where praise for this game ends. The game is slow and plotting, and as much as I like the voice actors featured in this game, the characters' constant talking will get old very quickly. This game is all style and no substance, and I'll give it a D. Clayfighter Sculptor's Cut is a special edition version of Clayfighter 63 1/3. Now, is this game worth its $700 price tag? No way. It's pretty much the same game with 4 added characters and an intro movie. It's a $700 D. The PC hit Command & Conquer received a port on the system. This game was completely reworked and had new 3D models. The joystick replicates the mouse movement fairly well, and overall it works, but doesn't really add anything new to the experience. It's competent but average, and I'll give it a C.
Didn't look too good tonight. Ooh, hang on a sec. Sorry about that, old chap. Gotta go.
Conker's Bad Fur Day is the kind of game that is just crazy to think about that it got made on the system. It's a 3D platformer but for adults, developed by Rare. It is absolutely hilarious and full of movie references, and I do think it's also the best looking game on the entire system. If you guys haven't played it, they remade it for the original Xbox, and it's also on the Rare Replay for the Xbox One. It's an A. Cruis'n USA was one of my first 3 games for the system when I was a kid. I absolutely played it to death and I loved every second of it. It has a bunch of different tracks all over the USA, but unfortunately it hasn't aged that well. I still love it, but there's definitely better racing games on the system, and I think nostalgia might influence this decision a little bit, but I think I'll still give it a B. I still love it. Cruis'n World is the second game in the series, and it feels more like an expansion of new vehicles and levels to Cruis'n USA than a completely new experience. The graphics are definitely better though, with a ton of more pop and brighter colors overall. Still, if you liked Cruis'n USA, you'll love this game as well, but it doesn't do enough to make it better than Cruis'n USA's grade, which was a B. So this is a B as well. Cruis'n Exotica is the third and last game in the series for the system, and unfortunately I do believe it's the worst. The graphics somehow look worse than the last two games, and as much as I admire the unique tracks, I feel like they made them so unique so they didn't have to try with detail or spice up the gameplay at all. It is still fun if you'd like the Cruis'n series, but I'll give it a C. Cyber Tiger is a golf game starring Tiger Woods. It uses the analog stick to control the swing, which I thought was a pretty neat feature. And there are various power-ups to make your ball go farther and in other directions, but ultimately I didn't find them to be that effective. The character models look really good, but the courses look incredibly bland and barren. If you like golf games, this one might be for you, but for me it's pretty average and I'll give it a C. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is the list over here of the games I did rank today. If you guys disagree with any of them, let me know in the comments below. If you guys like the video, like it. And if you want to see more of these types of videos, subscribe and let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a great day.